We all celebrated, right? We mourned. We genuinely thought Avengers Endgame was it, the ultimate ending, the biggest sacrifice to stop the baddest dude the universe had ever faced, Thanos. But what if that win, as huge as it felt, was just one move in a giant cosmic chess game that stretches across all realities? What if those 14,605,000 futures Doctor Strange looked into weren't only about the Infinity Stones? What if he saw way beyond the Mad Titan, to disasters so massive they'd make the snap seem like a blip on the radar? Seriously, what if Stephen Strange knew, from the get-go, that the real endgame was about something as terrifying as a universal doomsday, and the entire multiverse collapsing in on itself like in Secret Wars? So the story we all know goes like this. Doctor Strange, playing his crucial part in Infinity War, used the Time Stone to find that one single timeline where the Avengers eventually beat Thanos. He made a gut-wrenching choice, handed over the Time Stone, and let Thanos win for a bit, all because he saw that one lonely path to victory. And we saw that victory in Endgame, hard-won and devastatingly expensive. The universe was saved, everything back in balance. Or so we thought. But here's the thing about Doctor Strange. His whole deal is seeing past what normal folks see, understanding threats others can't even dream up. His job isn't just about Earth or even our one universe. As a sorcerer, supreme level dude, he's looking out for all of reality. So, you gotta ask, was beating Thanos really where his plan ended? Or was it just a brutal, necessary step in a much bigger, much scarier strategy? That's the theory we're exploring today, that Doctor Strange's moves in Infinity War and Endgame weren't just about Thanos. They were about getting the MCU ready for much, much bigger fish to fry, the kind of universe-ending threats that comic fans know from names like Doomsday and the reality-shattering chaos of Secret Wars. Let's jump back to Titan. Strange says, there was no other way. We mostly took him at his word, right? Believing every sacrifice, especially Tony Stark's, had to happen exactly as it did to beat Thanos. But what if no other way pointed to a much longer road, a road that needed specific things to happen during the Thanos fight to set up for what came next? Think about it. One winning future out of over 14 million. Why that specific chain of events? Why the 5-year blip? Why did Thanos have to be beaten in that particular way? Every single piece could be a domino, not just to knock out Thanos, but to keep falling, getting things ready for a totally different, way more complicated war. Who lived? Who died? The lessons learned? The teams formed and broken? Strange could have been weighing all of that not just against Thanos, but against future multiversal incursions and new bad guys who might be even more powerful. The blip, for example. Horrible, sure. But it also forced a whole generation of heroes to deal with loss and fight in a changed world. Could Strange have seen that as a necessary, if brutal, training montage? And Tony Stark's sacrifice, that's huge here. His death was the heartbreaker of Endgame, the ultimate price. But from Strange's massive, multiversal viewpoint, could there have been an even colder, more practical reason? There's a compelling idea that Strange saw a future where Tony's presence, or maybe even his tech, could accidentally cause an even bigger disaster later on. Or maybe his absence was crucial for a different kind of hero or power to step up. Fan theories even get wild, talking about Doctor Doom, a massive villain from the comics, potentially being played by Robert Downey Jr., maybe even echoing Stark in some twisted way. Now, that part's pure speculation about an echo, but it shows the kind of mind-bending, long-term thinking this theory gives Strange credit for. If Strange saw Doom coming, making sure Stark wasn't around to be a rival, a pawn, or even the wrong kind of inspiration, could have been a tough but calculated move. The Russo brothers, who directed Infinity War and Endgame, are confirmed to direct the upcoming Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars films. They've talked about bringing a focused story back to the MCU and mentioned that Iron Man's sacrifice is part of the story for these new films. That pretty much tells us the fallout from Endgame is far from over and was definitely laying the groundwork for what's next. Strange's famous line, "If I tell you what happens, it won't happen," suddenly feels much heavier. It wasn't just about protecting the Thanos plan, it was, you could argue, about protecting the unbelievably complex series of events that had to unfold just right to give reality a shot against whatever he saw lurking over the horizon. Thanos was a threat to one universe. What Strange might have glimpsed were threats to the whole multiverse. After Endgame, Doctor Strange's life has pretty much been a crash course in how dangerous the multiverse really is. Spider-Man, No Way Home showed us just how easily things can go sideways when you mess with reality, even if you mean well. Strange, for all his power, got a serious reality check, pun intended, seeing how thin the walls between universes actually are. This wasn't just a random adventure. It was a huge lesson about how fragile his own universe is, and all the others connected to it. Then came Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Here, Strange wasn't just peeking into other universes, he was tumbling through them, running into other versions of himself, some good, some bad, some downright evil. He learned about incursions, when universes smash into each other, wiping one or both out. This movie was a game changer. It showed us the multiverse wasn't just some cool idea, but a terrifyingly real and shaky place. The movie ends with Strange getting a third eye, usually a sign of seeing more, or maybe just maybe a hint of corruption from dark magic, and then Clea shows up to drag him off to fix an incursion he supposedly started. So, we're way past dealing with one power-mad titan with a fancy glove. This is about the basic rules of reality falling apart. Strange's job description just got infinitely bigger. Using the Darkhold dreamwalking. Yeah, he was trying to stop Wanda, but those moves had huge multiversal risks. The movie even hints he could be a danger to the multiverse himself. Benedict Cumberbatch has talked about Doctor Strange's future, saying there's a lot more to play with, and that he's interested in digging into the price Strange pays for always needing to be in control. That fits perfectly with a sorcerer who's up against multiversal-level threats, where every little thing he does can have cosmic-sized consequences. His experiences in these movies after Endgame would only hammer home what he might have already known from his Infinity War visions. The multiverse is real. It's in serious trouble, and threats way scarier than Thanos aren't just possible, they're coming. Bringing in America Chavez, who can literally punch holes between universes, just drives home the point that the MCU is all in on these multiversal stories. For Strange, this isn't some academic exercise. It's a 5-alarm fire he's now way too familiar with. Every spell, every choice now has to be weighed against how it might mess up not just his Earth 616, that's what they called it in Multiverse of Madness, but who knows how many others. This is key to understanding why he might have played such a long con with Thanos. Beating Thanos was about saving their universe. Getting ready for incursions and a multiversal war is about saving all of them. This whole dive into how the multiverse works and how dangerous it is wasn't just to clue us in, it was about toughening Strange up, and us too, for how big the coming problems really are. The threats he saw weren't just bigger bad guys, they were the potential end of everything. To really get why Doctor Strange might have been playing the long game, we need to talk about just how massive these potential future threats are. Threats that sound a lot like some of the most epic disasters in Marvel Comics, specifically stuff like a Doomsday event and the multiversal meltdown of Secret Wars. Alright, so let's be clear. Marvel Studios has officially announced 2 new Avengers movies on the way. First up is Avengers Doomsday, currently set for December 18th, 2026, and then Avengers Secret Wars, slated for December 17th, 2027. And here's the kicker. Robert Downey Jr. is confirmed to return, not as Iron Man, but as the legendary villain Dr. Doom for both of these films. Plus, the Russo brothers are back in the director's chairs. These are huge official announcements, folks. Now, while the exact story of Avengers Doomsday is locked down tighter than Fort Knox, the name itself screams ultimate, world-ending disaster. In the comics, a Doomsday isn't just a big fight. It's something that threatens to wipe out a whole world or even a bunch of them. Given where the MCU is heading, a Doomsday event in the multiverse saga is going to have stakes that make Thanos look like small potatoes. It could be the climax of all those incursion events, with universes literally smashing into each other and everything getting annihilated. Or maybe it's the rise of a new, super powerful tyrant like Dr. Doom. In the comics, Doom's brain and ambition are off the charts, often way beyond any villain we've seen on screen. The fact that RDJ is playing him, that's a massive clue about how big of a threat this guy is going to be. Then there's Secret Wars. If you know the comics, especially the 2015 version by Jonathan Hickman, Secret Wars is the be-all and end-all of multiverse stories. It's about the entire multiverse collapsing because of one incursion after another. All that's left is Battleworld, a crazy patchwork planet made from the bits and pieces of dead universes, often ruled by an almost godlike Dr. Doom. The stakes? Literally everything. Every reality, every hero, every villain, all chucked into a desperate brawl for survival. If the MCU is building towards Secret Wars, then Thanos, by comparison, was just a neighborhood dispute. Secret Wars is total multiversal Armageddon. Doctor Strange, after looking into 14 million futures, wouldn't just see the Thanos issue. He'd see the warning signs of these much bigger storms brewing. He'd understand that incursions are the real enemy, that someone like Dr. Doom showing up, especially a Doom who can mess with cosmic power on a multiversal level, is a threat that makes even a Titan with 6 Infinity Stones look manageable. The Infinity Stones are crazy powerful, sure, but they're mostly tied to their own universe. Incursions and beings who can control or cause them, like a fully powered up Doom, are playing on a whole different level. They make the stones seem like local problems. This is why Strange playing the long game makes so much sense. Beating Thanos wasn't just about winning that fight. It was about making sure the key players, the right heroes, the right knowledge, maybe even the right setup of realities, were in place to even have a prayer when these truly world-ending, multiversal threats finally showed up. The victory in Endgame wasn't the finish line. It was just clearing the board for a much deadlier, way more complex game that involves the fate of every single possible world. So, if we go with the idea that Doctor Strange saw these massive threats, like a multiversal Doomsday and an eventual Secret Wars coming, then everything he did leading up to and during Infinity War and Endgame starts to look like carefully placed moves in a giant multiversal plan. It wasn't just about that 1 in 14,605 shot to beat Thanos. It was about that one path also being the only path to get ready for the even bigger disasters that were coming later. Think about Strange himself and how he changed. He started off as this arrogant guy who didn't want to be a hero, then slowly embraced the mystic arts. That wasn't just his personal story. It was forging a protector who could actually understand and fight cosmic nightmares. How fast he mastered the Time Stone. Not just a handy plot point, it was what he needed to see far enough ahead to navigate the coming storms. The Ancient One even hinted Strange could be the best of them all. Maybe she also saw a glimpse of these future threats and knew Strange's unique mind and willingness to sacrifice were absolutely essential. The choice to let Thanos win for a while, to let the snap happen, that's the biggest clue. As awful as it was, the 5-year blip completely changed the MCU. It tested heroes, made new ones, and forced everyone everywhere to face loss and how fragile everything is. Could Strange have seen that this painful period was necessary to toughen up the survivors, to build a kind of strength they desperately need when facing threats that wanted to unmake reality itself? Maybe some heroes needed to be out of the picture for a bit, while others needed the chance to step up. And think about who survived the snap and who came back. Were those specific people part of Strange's calculations for a post-Thanos world that would soon be dealing with incursions and someone like Dr. Doom? The Avengers team that finally took down Thanos was a pretty unique mix of OGs, newer heroes, and cosmic heavy hitters. Strange might have seen that exact lineup as essential, not just for Thanos, but for the fights after Thanos. Even the way Strange talked to other heroes takes on a new light. His cryptic warnings, the way he sometimes seemed so distant. Maybe that came from the insane pressure of knowing what was really at stake, of understanding that every word, every action could send ripples across timelines with huge consequences for the real war yet to come. Getting the Infinity Stones and then destroying them also fits in. By making sure they were gone in their own timeline, Strange might have been taking powerful, universe-specific superweapons off the table that could be misused in the multiversal wars ahead. Or maybe he was making sure no single universe had a crazy advantage that could mess up the delicate balance needed to face something like incursions. The stones were Thanos' big goal, but for a multiversal planner like Strange, they might have just been variables he needed to control or get rid of before the real game started. You could almost see the whole fight against Thanos as a massive training exercise, a trial by fire to beef up Earth's defenses and its understanding of cosmic-level threats. It brought heroes together who might have otherwise stayed separate, and it made humanity and the rest of the universe aware of dangers they couldn't even imagine before. This wasn't just about stopping one mad titan. It was about getting a generation and an entire reality ready for the kinds of fights that could unravel existence itself. Every move Strange made, from his first chat with Dormammu to those final moments on Titan, can be seen as part of this bigger, terrifyingly necessary prep. The win in Endgame wasn't the final move. It was setting the stage for the multiversal championship. Alright, looking down the road, the MCU is officially hurtling towards Avengers Doomsday in late 2026 and Avengers Secret Wars in late 2027. These movies are shaping up to be the grand finale of the multiverse saga. Now, what about Doctor Strange? Well, Benedict Cumberbatch has been pretty clear that Strange will be sitting out Avengers Doomsday, saying the character doesn't quite align with that part of the story. However, he's also confirmed that Strange is expected to be quite central and in a lot of Avengers Secret Wars. So how does Strange's long game, his foresight from way back in Infinity War, fit into all this? One popular fan theory, which gets a nice boost from the end of Multiverse of Madness, is that a Doctor Strange 3 could be the bridge. There are comic storylines like Time Runs Out where heroes, Strange included, are desperately trying to deal with the multiverse decaying as incursions speed up, leading right into Secret Wars. A movie like that would show Strange actively trying to stop or manage these incursions, finally putting that Infinity War foresight into direct, desperate action. He'd go from reacting to Thanos to proactively fighting the collapse of all reality. And guess what? Cumberbatch himself has said discussions for a Doctor Strange 3 are happening, and he's involved in figuring out his character's next moves. The arrival of Doctor Doom, played by Robert Downey Jr., is a massive game changer. In the comics, Doom is often Strange's equal in brains and magic. Sometimes they're enemies. Sometimes they grudgingly team up against even bigger cosmic threats. The 2015 Secret Wars comic heavily features Doom as this godlike figure who saved what was left of the multiverse by creating Battleworld. If Strange saw Doom's rise coming, then every single move he made during the Infinity Saga could have been, at least partly, about subtly setting up the board for this showdown. This isn't just about beating another bad guy, it's about dealing with a super complex character who could be both a savior and a destroyer on a multiversal scale. The Russo brothers have confirmed RDJ's Doom is the new big bad, and they're directing both Doomsday and Secret Wars, which points to a very connected storyline. And don't forget the Fantastic Four. They're set to make their debut in the Fantastic Four First Steps in July 2025, and they are super tied to Doctor Doom. Their arrival is another key piece Strange might have seen coming. Reed Richards, especially, often shares the heavy lifting with Strange when it comes to tackling multiversal threats in the comics. Their combined smarts and power are often the only thing standing between reality and total wipeout. So, the road ahead looks like Strange will probably be dealing with the direct fallout of the multiverse's instability. Those incursions, maybe in his own movie, leading up to a catastrophic Doomsday event where Doctor Doom likely cements his power. This would then perfectly set the stage for Secret Wars, where Strange, armed with that ancient knowledge from his vision, would play a massive role in whatever desperate fight for existence is left. His long game wasn't just about winning one war. It was about making sure there was a future left to fight for, even if that future looked unbelievably grim and demanded alliances and sacrifices that would make Endgame look like a warm-up. The stakes aren't just one universe anymore, but all of them. And Strange has been carrying that weight since he first peeked into those 14,605 futures. Just try to imagine that for a second. Peeking into over 14 million futures, seeing not just how to beat Thanos, but also the horrifying, reality-destroying disasters waiting beyond him. That's the kind of weight Doctor Strange has been carrying around. It's enough to break anyone, a responsibility that stretches to every corner of the multiverse. His fight didn't stop when Thanos turned to dust. In a lot of ways, it was just getting started. He's been fighting a hidden war. A war of getting ready, of subtly nudging things, of making sure the right pieces were on the board for fights most people can't even imagine. Every cryptic comment, every tough call, every time he seemed a bit cold or distant, you can see all of it differently now. When he told Tony Stark on Titan, it was the only way. He probably wasn't just talking about a 5-year plan to undo a snap. He was likely talking about the only chain of events that left even a tiny sliver of hope for navigating the multiversal Armageddon he knew was barreling down on them. Endgame wasn't the endgame. It was just an endgame, a vital chapter before the truly universe-ending threats of Doomsday-level events and Secret Wars crashed the party. The sacrifices made, the heroes lost, the very fabric of their reality pushed to its limit. Strange saw all of this as just the warm-up act. He understood that Thanos, for all his terrible power, was like a symptom of a chaotic universe, but not the ultimate illness. The ultimate illness is the multiverse itself falling apart. The unavoidable incursions and the rise of characters like Doctor Doom who can use that chaos for their own terrifying plans. Benedict Cumberbatch has even hinted at how much this all takes out of Strange, the cost of his need for control and his sharp mind. That cost is knowing about these coming doomsdays all by himself. The constant calculating, the manipulating of events on a scale that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. He's playing chess with cosmic forces where entire universes are the pieces and the prize is the survival of everything. His journey from an arrogant surgeon to sorcerer supreme and now to a guardian of the multiverse has been one of ever-increasing pressure. Multiverse of Madness showed him the personal toll, the dark versions of himself, the very real danger he could become if he messes up. Clea showing up and dragging him off to fix an incursion he supposedly caused. That's not an ending. It's a new front in this massive unseen war. He's not just defending Earth anymore. He's trying to hold together the fraying edges of countless realities. This theory reimagines Doctor Strange. He's not just a powerful Avenger, he's the MCU's ultimate long-game player, a lonely watchman standing against the incoming tide of multiversal collapse. The win against Thanos was one battle won, but the war for reality itself. That's the war Strange has been fighting all along. A war he knew was coming. A war that the upcoming Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars will finally drag into the spotlight. So what do you guys think? Was Doctor Strange playing a game so ridiculously far beyond our understanding that Thanos was just the opening move? Did he set up everything in Infinity War and Endgame specifically to get ready for Doctor Doom and the multiversal mayhem of Secret Wars? What other clues do you think we might have missed about Strange's ultimate, terrifyingly necessary plan? Drop your theories and thoughts in the comments below. What are you most hyped or scared to see in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars? And what part do you think Doctor Strange will ultimately play in the fate of the entire multiverse? If you enjoyed this little trip down the rabbit hole of MCU grand strategies, do me a favor and hit that like button, share this video with your fellow Marvel theorists, and if you haven't yet, maybe think about subscribing and ringing that notification bell. That way, you won't miss out on future breakdowns of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and whatever else we cook up. Your support really helps us keep untangling these awesome and complicated stories.